the essence, essential logic of the modern industrial food system at its rawest and purest form. And that logic is that profit matters more than people, and it matters more than the earth, right? Profit above all else, above people and the earth. The logic of the plantation is the logic of the modern food system. And it helps to understand this logic. It helps to read the books, helps to experience for yourself what you can of this food system, but to understand the logic helps us penetrate to what is going on. And in this system, it is in the interest of the middleman, the inheritors of those trading companies, the big companies that dominate processing and distribution of food. It is in their interest to squeeze farmers, lower their costs, to externalize those costs, dump it on the environment, and to add value. And when you hear adding value, you should think processing. You should think adding sweeteners and artificial ingredients and corn syrup and all sorts of junk, right, that may make us crave it more and may make us buy it more, but it doesn't do anything for our health and our well-being. And that's the extension of the logic. So I think that this logic, industrial logic, and model might work well for some things. I don't know, it might work well for making cars and computers and iPads. We can have another discussion about that. But I know it doesn't work for food, right? I know it doesn't work for food. And I used to question it, actually, but I'm over questioning it. I know it doesn't work. I know it doesn't work because I know Lucas. Lucas, a tomato picker in southern Florida, who toils from dawn to dusk, hard work in the hot sun, without protection, without health care, and he will never, even with all that, get out of poverty. I know it doesn't work for a farmer I met in Illinois who was harassed, almost out of existence, by Monsanto. I know it doesn't work for the teenagers that I met last week in Brooklyn. When I started talking to them, I asked them how many of them either had diabetes or knew someone with diabetes. Every single hand went up. I know it doesn't work for the 99% of us who are left holding the bag of rising healthcare costs and pollution and pesticide drift and synthetic fertilizer runoff. And I know it doesn't work if what we really want is real food, right? And what's real food? Let me just get clear about this. Real food is actually pretty simple. Real food is food that nourishes, and it nourishes the body, it nourishes the earth, and it nourishes people, both those that eat and those that produce. Right? If the logic of real food, if the logic of the industrial food system is profit above all else, the logic of real food is respect and balance. And it's not that real food is against profit, it's just against the profit not being shared with those who work the hardest to bring us our food. So real food should be the norm, right? Not the exception, and that's the situation we have today. So I want to go back to the first door, the door of no return. This door represents what we're up against, a global food economy, 500 years in the making, that treats people and land as just cogs in a machine to make money. The second door. The second door is a wooden door on a busy city street. You might not notice it if you pass by. It's just a little sign above it that says, print shop. The door is a real door. It's in London, at 2 George Yard to be exact. And if you were standing outside of this door one morning in 1787, you'd have seen 12 men, mostly Quakers, walk inside. And they were going inside to a meeting, and that meeting was the beginning of the British Anti-Slavery Society. And it was the beginning of the very first citizens' campaign of its kind in the world. And what they started there, petitions to Parliament, book tours, truth tours, all of these are the instruments of social change that we take today, that we take for granted. In 10 years, this group of 12 had grown to hundreds of thousands around the globe. And in just 40 years, they did what was unthinkable: ended slavery in the British Empire. And I can tell that some of you are familiar with this, and I wonder if you've read the same book I have, Bury the Chains. Yes, you have. I recommend it to everyone. It's a wonderful book, an amazing book. It's a source of inspiration for me. It's by Adam Hochschild. One of the things it does that so brilliantly is also talk about the story of the slaves themselves who fought for their freedom, right? It was both sides of the Atlantic. And this book I cherish. If you cherish a book, if you had the experience of cherishing a book that has meant something to you, you know what this book means to me. I reached for it, I needed it at a certain point. A few years ago when the Kellogg Foundation released its study about the percent of healthy, green, fair, and affordable food in our economy, right? They asked that question. Out of the $1.1 trillion that Americans spend on food, how much of it is in effect real food? And when I heard the answer, I was dismayed. I was discouraged. It was 2%, less than 2%. It's 2% at the very, very highest. And I had been working at the Food Project for several years at the time, and I was very excited about what we were doing. We had this farm. We had 250,000 pounds of organic produce. We had a low-income farmers market. We had CSA. We had 150 youth. It was amazing. And then in the news, there's local food and there's organic food. It's all the buzz, right? It's really growing. And then we're what? A blip on the radar screen. And I thought, how could this ever change? It's too much. It's too far. And the book helped me. Right? The story. Because I remembered at the time when those men walked into and by the way, men and the women who ultimately joined the cause as well and supported them and made their lives possible, right? And who are essential to the cause. But at that point, it was men who entered the building. At that point, the order of the day in the whole world was slavery and serfdom. 3/4 of the world's population were slaves or serfs. The book is Bury the Chains: Prophets and Rebels in a Fight to Free an Empire's Slaves. I believe that's the subtitle. Adam Hochschild is the author. Thank you for asking. I wonder if there's a commission. But there's not. And so to suggest at the time, to imagine that you would have a world without slavery was like imagining today that you could have a world economy without oil. And who would be crazy enough to propose that? Huh? Oh, you guys. Well, here's some hope. So it happened, right? In just one generation, it happened. Hindsight is 20/20, of course. At the time, they didn't know that would happen. All they had was the conviction, their commitment, their belief in what was right or wrong. And that's what they started with. So the second door represents, to me, something that would be cliche if it wasn't factually demonstrably true, which is that a small group of people, of committed people, can and will change the world. So I want to take you to the third door. The third door is that one.